We're going to get started. Everyone, welcome to our first CURMAC webinar of 2026. We will be allotting some time at the end of the presentation for questions. Our guest speaker today is going to share some of the concerns that he's addressing here at our campus at CU Boulder, and those might be applicable to you wherever you are. Today's guest speaker is Conor Waladay. He is the AI Program Manager in the Department of the Office of Information Technology here at the University of Colorado Boulder. Conor, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Casey. Thank you for everyone from NAIR. I'm so happy to be here. Like Casey said, my name is Conor Waladay. I'm the AI Program Manager for OIT at CU Boulder. And I'm honored to be here to talk about the challenges of AI in education today. Looking forward to sharing some thoughts on the topic to start, and then hopefully we'll have some discussion after. I know that there's the Q&A function will be running, and then we could also just have a conversation. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll rely on Casey or someone to shout if I'm having any technical difficulties here. So to start, why do we need to talk about challenges that AI brings to education specifically? Well, first of all, it's because it's everywhere. We know that students are using it. We know that faculty are using it. We know that staff are using it. Even at the current level of capabilities and just at the free level of available tools, these tools can do incredible and sometimes even concerning things. And generative AI has wider implications than most technologies up to this point. The potential use cases span from everything to helping learn a new topic, to analyzing data sets instantly that used to take substantial time, and to mimicking human creativity or thought. There will be a few parts of higher education that are not impacted by AI to some degree, but almost all aspects of what we do, how we live, and how we work will be changing as a result of AI's existence. So if there are so many challenges that AI brings, why not ban or block it completely? Well, first of all, that would be nearly impossible. We know that the campus community, whether it's staff, faculty, or students, are all using generative AI, and oftentimes it's outside of the tools that the institution has specifically vetted and approved. But also, there are potential benefits that AI can bring as well. Some benefits include more personalized tools that can adapt to individual learning styles, the opportunity of iterative feedback where students can use AI tools to evaluate their work, and staff can improve communication content, and the existence of interactive tutors trained on course material that are available 24/7 unlocks a powerful assistant if used correctly. Also, there are possible benefits of efficiency gains in terms of repetitive tasks that overworked instructors are expected to complete. So hopefully they can focus on more impactful and meaningful work, as well as possible benefits of using AI as a thought partner during the brainstorming process. These are some of the reasons to critically engage with this technology so that way we can harness its benefits and potential while ideally mitigating the risks and challenges that also come with it. So while AI presents exciting opportunities, higher education institutions also face significant challenges that affect the broader campus community. There are many challenges that institutions face, and this is by no means a comprehensive list, but I wanted to take time today to talk about a handful of especially pertinent challenges. And although I certainly don't have all of the answers to these extremely complex challenges, I will do my best to offer some potential solutions or steps that we could take to mitigate the risks that I'll be outlining. So I'll go into detail in the following slides, but the challenges that I plan to bring up today include equity of access, hallucinations and accuracy, the decline of critical thinking, the inherent bias that exists in large language models and generative AI, academic dishonesty, data security, and the environmental impact of generative AI. So for the first challenge, equity of access. The risk here is that generative AI access will be determined by resources available so that some users can harness the technology while others can't. This risk is most obviously applied to students who have a wide spectrum of resources available. Those with the funds can have access to cutting-edge technology and grow proficient with it, while students with less may not have access to any tools or only to outdated or antiquated technology. This also rings true from college to college and department to department within higher education institutions, and the end result is an uneven playing field that can amplify inequalities. As far as solutions, there are two that come to mind. One is to offer baseline access to capable tools that have been vetted and secured for campus use. It would be fiscally impossible to always offer the most cutting-edge tools for every specific user's needs, but ensuring that all users have equal access to the technology levels the playing field. And it also helps to increase awareness that equity of access is a risk that we now face so that educational leaders can be aware of this when making decisions about which tools to support and how. The next challenge is the inherent risk of hallucinations and accuracy. Most of you have probably heard of the term hallucinations by now. It's when a large language model makes up facts and presents them convincingly as if they are true to the end user. If end users don't know that the risk exists, then they are less likely to critically evaluate every output that is given to them by an AI system or tool. Two solutions here are to train ourselves and our campus users to always critically evaluate the outputs given to us from generative AI tools, to always verify the citations that are provided in outputs, and to never rely on an AI tool to execute a task that we ourselves, as individuals, are not capable of completing. Otherwise, we would not have the ability to verify whether an output is factual and accurate. And similarly, one solution to mitigate this risk is to increase awareness that this risk exists so that all users of AI tools can mitigate the possible impacts. The next challenge area is that generative AI, if used improperly, can decrease critical thinking or cause over-reliance on the technology. This is true for all users, but I think an obvious population to be concerned about are our students who are here seeking to learn. This challenge has deep roots in the modern education industrial complex and has many, many nuanced implications that we don't have time for here. But the simple way to explain this is that if students see their education as product driven instead of process driven, if they're told the value behind what they're learning, then they're more likely to outsource their process or their thinking to AI tools. Now, I know that this adds additional work and effort for our faculty and instructors, but one solution is for educators to explicitly communicate the value of the learning taking place, to explain the why behind what the students are studying and what work they're doing. And you may be seeing a theme here, but another solution we should work towards is increasing the awareness of this risk to our students, to our educators, to our staff, and our researchers. The next challenge is the inherent bias that exists within every generative AI system. Most available large language models are trained from a corpus of data that encompasses essentially the entire internet. And we know that the internet is not a wholly unbiased set of data to train on. It reflects a primarily English perspective and that of Western countries. Similarly, even AI tools that exist have shown to provide biased, AI detection tools have shown to provide biased results. Students that have English as their second language and minorities are flagged more often in AI detection tools because those tools themselves use AI in the process. Now, there are efforts underway around the world to remove some of the most impactful biases from these systems, and there are more involved efforts underway to fine-tune models to compensate for the bias, but it will almost always be a risk. So some solutions are for institutions to vet tools, not just for their capabilities and security systems in place, but to also look at the tools holistically as much as possible to include concerns of bias. And of course, what we should be doing is increasing awareness of this risk so that more people know that it exists. This challenge is obvious to all of us who work in education. It's been a hot topic since ChatGPT became widely available years ago, and it still is today. Academic dishonesty. This covers a broad and nuanced subject area as well, but this can generally be intended to mean that students are using AI in ways that was not made acceptable by the instructor. And because AI detection tools have a lot of accuracy and bias concerns, there aren't any easy solutions here. But some solutions that head the right direction, at least, are for instructors to be transparent with students about acceptable uses. That can be in a conversation at the start of the semester, or, as it is highly recommended, it could be a clear policy written into a syllabus addressing acceptable and non-acceptable uses. Some instructors are now moving towards an approach that uses what are called disclosure statements from students, which allows for a wider use of AI as long as students are being transparent on their end for how they used AI on an assignment. There's also the solution that does take a lot of effort, but it's to adapt learning activities to be harder to complete using AI, or that critically integrates AI into the process in an intentional way. And of course, a key solution is to increase awareness of this risk. It's important for our educators to know that this risk exists in order to mitigate it as much as possible. And finally, the last challenge I'll talk about today is the risk that AI brings to data security. Higher education institutions have access to and are responsible for large amounts of protected data. We are legally obligated to protect FERPA data, but there is so much more than that when it comes to protected data on our campuses, which can also include research data and confidential institutional data. This challenge is made harder by the fact that many users don't realize when they are working with protected data versus public data, and many don't realize the risk that putting this data into an unapproved tool causes. Since non-approved tools may use data from users to train their models, users that are working with protected data could accidentally leak sensitive data by using unapproved tools or by using unapproved data with approved tools. As far as solutions here, one is for institutions to meet users where they are and to provide safe and vetted tools for protected use. Also, sharing clear and transparent guidance on what tools can be used and what data can be used will help clear up any confusion and increase security as a campus. And finally, one solution is to increase awareness of this risk to our campus communities. And you've heard me repeat that over and over for every one of these challenges, that we should be increasing awareness of these risks to our populations. So you might be wondering, how do you suggest we do this? Well, one of my proposals here is to decrease the impact that these challenges bring by fostering AI literacy to our campuses and to our end users. I'm guessing that many of you have already heard of AI literacy as a concept, but for those who haven't, one way to define this is the knowledge and skills to understand, critically evaluate, and ethically engage with AI technologies. And although that concept may sound straightforward in practice, fostering AI literacy can take many forms. AI literacy can be supported on campus through targeted workshops and trainings that cover part or all of an AI literacy curriculum. Or for students at least, it can be integrated into existing disciplines through first-year seminars or already required courses. AI literacy can also be fostered through resource hubs that either already exist on campus or may exist as a part of a new AI-focused resource or initiative. These hubs should be a collection of resources that address common questions or issues, and they do need to be updated regularly to stay relevant and useful. And finally, AI literacy can be a core component of campus communities of practice. These communities can be broad and focused on AI as a whole, or they can be made to be more specific for a targeted audience or population. These communities of practice can host their own events, offer communication channels, bring folks together who are already experimenting and learning, and offer a safe place for folks to learn within their own universities. So with that said, what are we doing at CU Boulder specifically? Well, we have a number of different initiatives, resources, and efforts. And if you're joining us from a different campus, like it looks like we have a number of folks in the chat, I imagine that many similar or adjacent efforts exist at your institutions as well. But as an opportunity to learn and share from one institution to another, I wanted to share some of the efforts that we're taking on our campus to increase AI literacy. This past fall, CU launched our own self-paced community course on AI literacy that we call AI Literacy Foundations. I'll go into more detail in a slide here in a second, but we felt it was important to offer AI literacy resources on our own for our own campus because we knew that many folks were learning about AI through marketing, advertising, sales pitches, and news headlines. We wanted to give a more neutral and higher ed specific lens to AI literacy concepts and to foster literacy on our campus to mitigate challenges like those we discussed today. Additionally, we have two AI communities of practice on our campus, one that's broad and available to faculty and staff across campus, and one that is teaching and learning focused that is targeted specifically to faculty members and hosts monthly gatherings and events. We also have a number of different targeted trainings that are available to our campuses, either to a specific department, to a college, to a team, and can be focused on their specific needs, whether it's communicating professionally, AI ethics, or AI resources and tools. And then we keep an up-to-date centralized AI homepage for CU Boulder that we call AI at CU Boulder. It's our go-to location and it's a hub to then launch other resources from to bring awareness to initiatives and to offer information for folks who want to be involved in these efforts. We also have an AI tools list, which is a comprehensive list of all approved tools that are generally available on campus that use generative AI. We talk about data security best practices and offer opportunities for folks to get involved. So just to give a little bit more detail about our AI literacy course, it's called AI Literacy Foundations. It's completely optional. It's not required for any faculty, staff, or students to complete. It's self-paced and it's available 24/7 through our LMS or our learning management system, Canvas. We wanted to meet folks where they were and to use a tool and a platform that they're familiar with using. So we chose Canvas as an opportunity for a just-in-time resource. So a faculty member that is on break but is preparing for the upcoming semester who may want to learn more about AI literacy can engage with this, in addition to our on-campus and in-person options. The modules that make up our AI Literacy Foundations course include what is AI literacy, so explaining the concept we're discussing today. What is generative AI? Giving an overview of what the technology is. How does generative AI work? So talking about the technical background in easy and approachable language so that way folks can understand both how it works, but where some of the limitations come from in these tools. We talk about AI on campus in terms of policies, guidance, procedures, and in the classroom, we talk about faculty-specific resources. We also directly address the risks and considerations that I'm talking about today in a module specifically in that course to bring awareness to our campus. We talk about prompt engineering basics. So how do you engage best with a tool? How do you effectively use AI tools? And then we end by talking about best practices, including using approved AI tools like we discussed. Now, it's key to understand that this is just our first step of hopefully a multi-stage foundational literacy series. So we already have in the works is a teaching and learning focus resource that was built for faculty specifically. And we intend to build and scaffold content on top of this foundational course in the future. And this is my last slide. I just wanted to address what we as individuals can do to address the issues and to foster AI literacy to our peers. The first way is obvious. It's to get involved. So whether you're at CU Boulder or somewhere else across the country, there are almost always opportunities for you to be involved. Excuse me. Also, if you're an instructor or student-facing faculty, communicate with your students. Establish those clear and transparent expectations and communicate them regularly to your students. Students are looking to our faculty and our staff to learn more about acceptable uses, so we have an obligation and an opportunity to increase AI literacy to our students. And the last one here is just to prioritize continuous learning. I know that it takes a lot of effort to stay up on an ever-changing and sometimes overwhelming area, but just know that we're all learning together. And so making sure that we're learning about the impacts of AI in higher education, like you are all doing here today, and communicating and talking about this with our peers and colleagues to make sure that we are all up to date and that we're doing our best to increase AI literacy on campus. So that's all I have for today. I look forward to some questions and discussion, and I will also be working to send some links in the chat as well.
Thanks, Connor. We do have some questions in the queue, and let me go back to our slide here. A survey done at CU Boulder recently showed that as many as 10% of surveyed students had been falsely accused of using AI. How can faculty avoid false accusations?
Yeah, that was a really great survey. As a part of the Center for Teaching and Learning on campus, they did an amazing job collecting some of the undergraduate student experience. There were over 3,000 responses to that. So it was a really good snapshot I believe it was last spring, on the student experience. And that was a very concerning finding from that report, as well as a lot of other valuable insights. 10% of false accusations is very significant. And it's important to remember that the experience of being falsely accused of something like that is really significant, and it could have long-lasting impacts on the students. Now, it doesn't mean that we should never discuss and be transparent with students when AI is acceptable and unacceptable for use. And I don't want to scare instructors away from that. But what's really difficult is that AI detection tools right now, and since really they've become mainstream, have a lot of underlying issues. The two main issues are accuracy and bias. Now, my understanding is that they're making progress in terms of both of those accuracy and bias concerns. But where we're at right now, even Turnitin, which is a large academic technology company that, of course, operates on our campus through our Canvas LMS, even their AI detection tool did not have a high enough accuracy or mitigate for bias enough that our institution felt comfortable offering that as a broad access tool. And we're seeing that from peer institutions as well. Obviously, this involves constant evaluation. Our academic technology team within OIT is actually evaluating the tool again for concerns of accuracy or bias, and as well as investigating and exploring possible alternative tools that are called authorship tools. And what an authorship tool is, it's not as user-friendly as something like an AI detection tool, but it requires that a student completes a written assignment within a window of the tool. And it tracks as the student is using the tool, when they're writing, when they're copying and pasting in from an alternative application, how they're citing, etc. And it offers a lot more information to the instructor than just an AI detection score. And I think where a lot of folks get caught up is AI detector tools offer a score, and that can be really convincing, even though that score is only really one aspect of considerations. Now, if instructors really want to investigate whether or not something could be plagiarized, a great way to start is by checking citations. AI tools are really convincing with their citations in that they would provide citations that sometimes don't exist. So asking students to verify citations would be a much more effective and accurate way than checking for M dashes or using a stylistic, word choice as an indicator. So yeah, right now AI detection is not reliable enough that we recommend it. And yeah, Grammarly is one of those tools. And there's Turnitin also has one called Clarity. There's several options out there. And in the end, the question is whether or not a tool would be intuitive and easy to use enough that it's also valuable. We know that students prefer using applications like Word and Google Docs to write. And so getting them and our instructors to shift over to a separate tool for any kind of writing assignment would not be an insignificant lift. But it is one way to offer more information than just an inaccurate score.
Next question. If you had to recommend one resource to engage with to stay up to date on the ever-changing AI world and maybe specifically to higher education, what would you recommend?
That's a great question. I'm always seeking out new resources myself. So, one thing that I have really enjoyed, CU Boulder at least is a member of a group called EDUCAUSE, and I think that's very common across the country. EDUCAUSE is very education technology focused, and they offer a number of podcasts that feature specific institutions, initiatives, lesson learns. It is a bit technology focused, and so it's not always pedagogically focused. But I think it's a really good opportunity, especially when commuting to work or doing anything else, to listen to a podcast. And it's not is a hype machine for AI, because we know that exists out there. A lot of podcasts, a lot of articles, authors are very, very excited and very optimistic about what AI can do. And although that's not bad to ingest some of that, I think it's really important to get a little bit more of a neutral stance. And EDUCAUSE offers several options. I believe if you look in Spotify for EDUCAUSE, you'll see a couple of different podcast options by them, and most of them have really good resources. So if you're into podcasts, it's a great option.
Next question. You mentioned faculty using AI in the classroom and explaining acceptable use. What is happening with different disciplines teaching students how to use it for their future career?
Yeah.
Employees, yeah, there's a second part to this question. Employer surveys indicate that a very high percentage of employers want workers with AI knowledge and that new grads are not experienced enough.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, it's really kind of three questions in one, so I'll try to address it as much as possible. At least at our institution, I think this is true for a lot of higher education. There's a really foundational aspect of academic freedom within our faculty members' choice in how to teach. And we rely on that. And it's a core aspect of our approach for AI is we're not forcing instructors to teach with AI, to teach about AI. We think that it is very valuable and it's worthwhile in every subject area. But certainly certain majors and departments and colleges on campus might lean into that more and differently than others. So there, as far as I know, there's no expectation right now that, teachers should infuse AI into their classroom. But I do think that there is a very strong value for including AI literacy components to students, regardless of what your subject area is that you're teaching. So we want to offer academic freedom, but we also want to be clear and transparent to our students about the impacts of AI, how they could use it to their benefit, what the risks are and challenges are, like we're talking about today and being really frank and open. And I think it really helps to say that we're all learning together. We know that this is an area where people feel like they need to be an expert and that we work in an institution where there's a lot of expertise. But there are very few AI experts that have thought about the pedagogical implications and some of the societal implications of AI for years. And so we're all learning together. As far as preparation for the workforce, I think that is extremely valuable. However, not every faculty member sees that as a core component of what they're doing is workforce preparation. And I think we want to honor that. So I think it could be a value for our campus and it could be a goal that we have, but also I think we want to balance readying our students for the workforce with academic freedom. And there are definitely some students that are pursuing a degree out of workforce readiness more than others. And so I think we want to honor the diversity of perspectives on our campus while also supporting those who want to increase AI use and in a safe and responsible way.
We still have a few more questions, Connor. Uh,
Sure.
Next question. I love the idea of AI Literacy Foundations course available in Canvas. What type of response have you gotten from students in terms of the number of students who are taking the optional self-paced course? That's part one of the question.
Okay,
And
I'll start.
in general, what kind of feedback have you received on the course?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, or I said this earlier, but it's targeted to faculty and staff. I haven't looked at the metrics specifically on affiliation, but I imagine it is heavily leaned towards faculty and staff completions of the course. We launched that course this past semester. We have over 600 enrollments in the course, which I think is a good sign of the level of interest, considering this is completely optional. There is a micro-credential component where you'll receive a recognition badge if you complete the entire course. But really, we just see this as trying to set a shared understanding and shared vocabulary across the campus as far as core fundamental concepts of AI literacy. Um, we do collect feedback from users who have taken the course, and overall, the feedback has been very positive, and we really appreciate that. This is what we call our version one of the course, and so it is, it's a good start, but we plan to make a lot of improvements. We're actually partnering with the Academic Learning and Innovation Office on campus to re-record the videos in a more professional format. And this is a really good opportunity for us to update and integrate the feedback that we receive from our learners. So our version two will be even better. And then we hope to, like I had mentioned earlier, scaffold content on top of this foundational course. So if you have no exposure to AI, the foundations course is a great start. But if you feel like you're prepared to kind of dig in a little bit deeper in a certain area, then you could take a faculty specific course. You could take a course one day, focus on staff or data uses, how to critically evaluate outputs. We have a lot of opportunities for what we can build on top of this course.
Next question. What is the CU strategy for students in academic programs? Are you creating new courses or new programs? How are you preparing students for the workplace with AI? Similar to a past question we had, and I'll just answer a little part of that first. That at University of Colorado Boulder, you can go onto the class search and do a keyword search for AI. And I've noticed that there are more and more courses with the inclusion of AI. And then I'll let Connor address the rest of the question. Let me know if you want me to repeat it.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a great question. And just as a reminder, I only reflect OIT's work on our campus, so we're only one aspect of the campus. We defer to the academic side of the campus to make the decisions that they think are best for our populations. OIT is here to support the academic focus on our campus. So we want to play an active role and we want to foster, literacy of this technology that's really impactful. But we completely defer to the provost and the academic side for decisions like that. Now, I will say, just from my personal experience, I have also seen what Casey has mentioned as far as an increased availability of courses on our campus. I know that there's at least one course on our campus called, I believe it's Writing in the Age of AI. It offers something like 7 sections that are all completely full, and there's a wait list for it. So there's demand, and students really want to learn from our institution. Now, what that looks like, I think, is really up to each independent college and the departments. But of course, we're here to support. So if there's anything OIT can do, we would definitely love to do that. And we fully endorse educating our students on the topic. I know that there's a lot of interest, and we're doing a great job of trying to meet the students there.
Next question. You mentioned environmental impact. What is CU Boulder doing about AI and the environment?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I would always try to answer this question by acknowledging the fact that AI definitely has impacts on our environment. We're hearing about it specifically these days with data centers and the amount of electricity and water that is required to power these increasingly large data centers. Um, and it's a really nuanced subject. When we talk about AI use and the energy use that it requires, part of the question is, what are we comparing it to? Are we comparing it to doing a simple Google search or a web search versus using ChatGPT for every possible question you have? Is it unlocking new data analysis and new research capabilities? And it's everything we do that involves computers do pull some type of resources. If we're streaming video, high definition video, using cloud computing, all of these things are pulling from data centers somewhere. And I think the first step is to increase awareness that AI does operate differently than other technologies, and that it is a resource intensive technology. And then also, I think us as a campus, we need to foster continued exploration of how sustainability and AI can be completed in conjunction. We are a leading institution for sustainability, and so I think we have an opportunity to bring that focus area to AI. On an individual level, there's also things that you can do to still use AI. Like I had said, is this replacing a quick web search? Well, a web search often uses less energy than a generative AI query. However, are you doing 10 web searches and clicking through 10 different websites versus getting the answer right away? That's really nuanced area that's really tricky to address. And as well as what I think a lot of people don't know is the size of a model also determines how energy intensive it is. So a lot of tools, whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., have things where you can select the model that's being used. Nowadays, they're often calling them thinking models versus like light or fast models. And not only do light or fast models respond generally quicker to queries, but they also use less energy. And so I think we will, as a society, get to a place where, as we increase our knowledge and expertise around AI, make more active decisions about AI and the nuance with the energy impact that it has. But I will say this is not an area where we have a really concrete answer. And so I think it's something that we still need to explore, and we need to balance our values as a campus.
Connor, we still have questions coming in.
Great.
Can you elaborate on how you update AI literacy content given how quickly the tools are changing?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it is certainly a challenge. We So we can only update a course so often, especially if you've taken our foundations course, you know that a lot of the content is conveyed or communicated via video, which makes it extremely difficult to update regularly. As we're preparing for our version 2 of the course here about 6 months later after launch, the names of example tools have changed, the technology has changed, the focus areas. Every week there's some new headline about capabilities. The good news is we have so much that we can focus on that isn't changing daily. And that is the core concepts of critically evaluating the tools. Accuracy, bias, energy impact, these things are still that are true today and they were 6 months ago. There's a lot that has changed, definitely. But we focus on those broader concepts first. And I think as we stack and scaffold content on top of there that's more specific, yes, it's going to be challenging to keep up to date. And we certainly feel that challenge. And as soon as a resource feels dated, it could feel not as relevant. So it's really hard to make sure that content is accurate and up to date all the time. But I think it's worth the effort.
Next question. Do you think it's important to clarify the difference between teaching about AI, teaching with AI, and teaching AI? It seems like a framework is needed to help us communicate what we are doing with AI in the classroom. Some faculty integrate with AI without clear outcomes. Some tell students that AI will be their teacher, while others tell students never to use AI at all.
Yeah, absolutely. The good news is, I think most of whether you're teaching about AI or teaching with I think if you're doing it intentionally, critically, and responsibly, I think that it does more good than harm. Whether or not you're teaching the perfect thing in every course every day is really challenging, especially like we said, in an area that's changing all the time. I do think so. I'm sure there's a lot of teaching faculty representation in the audience, and certainly across the country. If you're not involved in your faculty governance groups, whether it's like a faculty assembly or whatnot, making sure that your institution or your assembly is focusing on these concepts is really valuable. I know at CU Boulder that we want, as OIT, to support initiatives that faculty have. But what we don't want to do is intrude or invade on that academic freedom principle. And so we're here available. We have our staff that can come to departmental meetings or trainings, retreats. We could talk about these concepts, but really, we need the faculty to demand that these resources are created. So whether or not it's a framework for how to teach with AI versus teach about AI, whether it's requiring syllabus statements to address it or encouraging, a resource like that, there's a lot of opportunities, and we've seen that already on our campus through the Boulder Faculty Assemblies AI work group that put out example syllabus statements. But I think there's always more pressure that the faculty can put if they feel like this is needed for what they are experiencing.
Okay, next question. What is the approval process for AI tools at CU Boulder? And could you tell us where to find the list of approved tools?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I will put the link to the AI tools list in the chat. So just a caveat, the link in the chat, it's for CU Boulder's AI tool list. Now, this is our attempt to be transparent and clear about the available tools that have been vetted and approved for use on campus. Thank you so much, Becky. Also put it in the chat. The tools list covers comprehensive, widely available tools and more general purpose tools than specific or niche tools. The productivity tools that are listed include things like Apple Intelligence, Gemini, Notebook LM, Copilot Chat, and we describe the tool as succinctly as possible. We talk about the access. So, is it available to faculty? Is it faculty and staff? Does it include students? Is it something that has an additional fee, or is it covered by the cost provided from the campus? And then, very vitally, I think we talk about the approved data level. So, like I had mentioned, as one of the risks is data security. Knowing which tool can be used for which type of data is really difficult for the average user. We have so much that we're responsible for, and we're all doing so much work that it's really challenging to keep in mind every data type that is used for every tool. So we try to have it as this resource. So if you click on that AI tools list, and if you're from another institution, you might have already an AI tools list for your institution. This is how we are approaching it. And you'll notice near the top, there's a link for review and approval of AI tools. Becky, maybe you could throw that in the chat too if you're available. Review and approval of AI tools. And the reason why that's there is because the tools on the AI tools list are generally available, but there is a process, and there always has been a process for faculty and staff to use the tools that they need to, even if it's not provided as a general access. So a tool that can go through security and accessibility review, and then be approved for use with the scope of type of data and the audience that it's being used for. There are many more tools than that are on the AI tools list, and they've all gone through ICT review, which is an accessibility and security review. Depending on your audience and the type of data that you want to use, it could be a really quick review process. If you're trying to use sensitive data or use it with a wide, diverse group of different affiliations on campus, there might be some questions or clarifications that are needed. But we do have a process for individuals on campus to get approval for the tools that they need. And just one clarification there, just because a peer or a colleague of yours may have received approval for use of a tool in a certain way, does not all by default apply to everybody. And that's because your audience or your environment that you're using it in could be different, and it's always context dependent.
Okay, right now we have just one more question in the queue, unless any more come in. So this is the last call for questions. And this question is, I've observed faculty that warn students against using AI to do their paper. Can you speak about that? So I think the question is like, yeah, some faculty say don't use AI, some say it's okay to use AI. Is there any kind of policy, or are there resources for faculty about whether or not they can allow AI use in the classroom?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm coming from OIT, so we are here at the service of the institution. I'm not a faculty member, and so what I can say is, to my knowledge, there's no policy on campus that dictates whether or not teaching faculty should or should not integrate AI into their curriculum. What I think is the strong push for our campus is to be clear and transparent with students with what is acceptable. And if that's no AI use, that is totally fine. I had mentioned the AI syllabus statements, example statements that were provided from the Boulder Faculty Assembly and the Center for Teaching and Learning. Those statements are not just statements that clarify what AI is usable. It spans the entire spectrum of this is how to communicate that AI is not acceptable in my class. This is how to communicate you can use it for some things, but not others. And here's how you can communicate, for example, that you can use AI for anything in the course. And sometimes really proactive instructors don't take a stance that is the same for every assignment and activity in a within a course. They actually are really specific for this assignment or this activity. I want you to use AI. Now for this next one, I don't want you to. And I think it's really effective if you're clear in the why, in the process instead of the product of why you are asking students not to take a certain or not to use or to use tools. I think it's really much more impactful. If a faculty member just says don't use AI in our course, but doesn't explain why, doesn't explain the value of learning, it is more likely that students are going to use AI in unacceptable ways. And so I think what it comes down to is transparency and communication with students about your stance and why for your reasons. So, but OIT is not involved in that. We don't decide with academic freedom, we don't weigh in on that, but we do advocate for instructors to be clear and transparent. I do see in the chat there's a comment from David. Thanks, David. Most models are resource intense during the training and not during user end functions. That is very true. I try not to get into that can of worms when talking about the environmental impact because in the end, using a model after it's been trained is one way to probably advocate for more capable and future models to be created. But it is 100% true. The energy intensive part of creating these large language models is in the training, not in the inference, which is like the end user chatting with the tool. Also, I didn't mention, but I think it's worth communicating is awareness of the different types of use of AI is really valuable. So a text-based chat with an AI tool uses something like 1/10 of the energy that creating an image would in using a tool like Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini. And then now we're actually seeing the emergence of video generation tools, and that uses something like 10 times even more than images. And so there's a lot that we can do to increase awareness of energy use and make, whether or not you're doing 100 text prompts or 100 images or 100 videos has a very big difference in the energy use. And so there's a lot that we could do to educate ourselves and to spread awareness of this.
Okay, Connor, we did have another comment pop up in
Sure.
the Q&A. It's a statement rather than a question, so I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. Um, Students using AI in their academic programs, what do faculty need to do to control students' over reliance on AI?
Yeah, that's really tricky. And I don't have an easy solution for that. I do think communicating the why in using or not using tools makes a big difference. So if you're trying to build a specific skill or ability in students, and you're also worried about over-reliance on that, explaining why this would be important and why having the fundamental ability as a human still has value and what doesn't hurt is to learn the skill and then learn how to do it with generative AI as well. I had mentioned at one point that hallucinations is an area of challenge. And part of that is it's beyond hallucinations, but the accuracy of these large language models is not perfect, and it's very unlikely to ever get to 100% accuracy. So when we see an output that we've asked a generative AI tool to create, if we don't have the expertise or the knowledge to validate whether or not that is true and accurate, we are at the will of the generative AI tool and its level of accuracy, which is not perfect, and we're not able to verify that. And so when we talk about AI literacy, being able to critically evaluate the output from these tools, part of it is knowing when you have the expertise to validate the output and knowing when you don't. And so there is still important value to having skills and abilities, even if generative AI can do this in some way or another.
Okay, we're almost at time here. We have one more. Oh, we have a couple more questions coming in. So I will get back to the Q&A in just a second, but before people start leaving because they have classes or appointments, I want to take the opportunity to thank Connor for his presentation and thank you to all who joined us today for your great engagement and questions. I want to let you know that we're working on scheduling more workshops, more webinars, more trainings, and we'd really be grateful if you could complete our post-webinar survey because that helps us tailor the webinars to the topics that are most helpful for you. So Becky has dropped that into the chat, and then you also have the QR code on the screen. And then lastly, wanted to let you know that we have been recording this webinar and we will post it onto our NAIR YouTube channel within 2 weeks. And I will email everybody the link for that. And by the way, we just created a community on Google Groups. Thank you for your patience with my voice. I've been hoarse all week. We just created a Google Groups community and we will be sending announcements about our future webinars, workshops, and trainings via this NAIR-access Google Groups. So you'll all be added automatically to that and you can unsubscribe if you're not interested in receiving those updates. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to go back to a couple questions. And if you have to drop off, thank you, and you can contact us by email, and we'll try to follow up with you after. Connor, we've got two more questions in the queue. One is how to protect the privacy of faculty and students. Do you think there's a need to build enterprise AI, local, like how do you basically where do you store sensitive information?
Yes, that privacy and data security, data protections are obviously a very essential part of evaluating these tools and these technologies. I think part of the question might be, whether or not we have our own local on-premises, technology that we are offering to the campus. And interestingly, if you're interested in that, you can look at Michigan and UC San Diego have both done this. There's several institutions that have done this. And the goal there is to have ultimate control over these technologies. And I think that's one approach. Obviously, the other approach is either paying for a vendor or outside service or cloud computing technology. And in the end, what we rely on with any of our vendors for our data protection and policies is our legal protections that come through signing contracts after approving and vetting these vendors. And that's really important to know that, for example, I know that Zoom had changed their policy when it came to AI training um, of data that Zoom had, and there was a lot of concern about that when it came out, rightfully so. And it's important to know that because CU Boulder has our own contract with vendors like Zoom, that we don't have the same terms that as an individual you might have. And so even though Zoom's policy changed to train models or to train tools on user data, which is very concerning, that is not true for the CU Boulder instance or CU Boulder license of Zoom. And that's true for most of our technologies, is that we have a specifically agreed upon contract. And the vendors take that very seriously, as you can imagine, because there are many institutions like ours that have data protection as a high priority. That's another reason why I think equitable access is of value across institutions like this, whether it's on premises or a third party vendor, is we can have vetted and approved tools that have those agreements to protect our data specifically. That an end user who says maybe goes out and uses their personal email address and has a ChatGPT account, your data is being trained on. And so it's a very complicated issue when we talk about university data and protecting that, but know that that's part of the reason why we push so hard to use approved tools for CU work and learning. So hopefully that answered the question.
One last question, which is a good one. How do students verify the accuracy of AI tools, given that they precisely lack the subject matter expertise?
That's a really great question. And I think, the easy out is we need to push for student AI literacy more than we already do. Um, we also have to keep in mind that we are now having students enter in as freshmen at CU Boulder who, went through a COVID experience through middle school. Then right after that, ChatGPT was released, for free for like the average person in the world. And the adoption of that tool is huge. And so these are students who have come through possibly grade school and into high school and now entering into higher education who have used generative AI tools as in addition to their learning. And whether or not those grade school and high school districts are, teaching students best practices and considerations right after rebounding from COVID it's a lot for them to manage. And so I think we as higher education, as well as K-12 institutions need to start pushing for increased student literacy. And every student should know the risks that using AI bring, including accuracy, bias, et cetera. So that way they can use it and they can critically evaluate how they're using it and what it's telling them. But yeah, as far as not having the expertise to validate it, that's another example and an opportunity for our faculty to really communicate with our students about this.
Okay, Connor, we are over time slightly, so I just want to thank everyone again for joining us today. And we'll be in touch with resource links for you, as well as the recording of the webinar once that's available. Thanks for joining us, and you'll be hearing from us again soon regarding upcoming webinars and trainings in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casey. Thank you to the NAIR team. And thank you for everybody that attended today. I really appreciate the opportunity and I look forward to collaborating in the future.